Listen, and picked up by Beverly, and that's all she wrote. The Timberwolves are going to the playoffs.
Yep, this actually happened. In 2022, the Minnesota Timberwolves really did celebrate a play-in win like they have just won the NBA Finals. And looking back at it, it might seem really silly, especially now that they're competing for the 1 seed and are a real title contender just 2 years later. So what really happened? How did the Timberwolves go from an 0-4 conference finals appearance to not making it to the playoffs for 14 years to now being the number 1 seed in the West? Well, in 2004, Kevin Garnett finally got some help around him and led the Minnesota Timberwolves to their most successful season ever, making it all the way to the Western Conference Finals. And although they were bested by the 0-4 Lakers in 5 games, the future was looking very bright in Minnesota. However, looks can be deceiving. In this case, they definitely were deceiving. In the 2 decades following this run, the Minnesota Timberwolves have yet to make it out of the first round and only have 4 playoffs appearances since then. So how did this happen? Well, for the most part, it was because of the Minnesota Timberwolves' horrible front office at the time. But for the sake of this video, we're not going to be going over that. So if y'all want to see exactly what happened, go check out this video by my boy Secret Base. He does a great job of explaining what happened to the T-Wolves between 2004 to 2017. And so we'll be continuing our video in 2018, where the Minnesota Timberwolves finally made the playoffs for the first time in 14 years. Their whole season came down to this one shot. And out of all people, it was Jeff Teague that sealed the win, advancing the Minnesota Timberwolves to their first playoff appearance in over 18 years. However, this success story was short-lived, since after this, the Timberwolves proceeded to lose to the number 1 seed, the Houston Rockets, in 5. Minnesota would not see a playoff appearance in either of the next 2 years due to a lot of nagging injuries. However, this was really a blessing in disguise, because in the 2020 draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves had the number 1 overall pick, and the player that they got arguably saved their entire franchise.
With the first pick in the 2020 NBA draft, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Anthony Edwards from the University of Georgia.
Ant-Man entered the league as an insanely athletic 2 combo guard. He had the talents to be a really good defender and was already a really solid finisher around the rim. And his development over the next 2 or 3 years did not disappoint. Ant has now developed himself into being one of the best scorers in the entire league and a pretty good defender. He's got everything he needs in his bag, from pull-up threes, long-range threes, and he draws a lot of comparisons to 2 players that y'all may know. When Ant gets in the post and shows off his post game, a lot of people compare that to the same post games that MJ and Kobe had. But what really separates Ant from everyone else in the league is his insane mentality. This guy will refuse to lose. And this was showcased in the Celtics game early on in the season, when Ant almost single-handedly beat the Celtics in the 4th and overtime. However, don't get me wrong, yes, Ant is a huge part now of why the Minnesota Timberwolves are a 1 seed, but he also has a great team built around him. And it starts with one of the best defenders in the league, Jaden McDaniels. Then you also have one of the best big men in the league, Karl Anthony Towns, who's arguably the greatest shooting big man of all time. Cat is a perennial all-star who will not be slowing down anytime soon. And then there's the best paint defender in the league, Rudy Gobert, paired along with his old teammate, Mike Conley, who's a really great veteran point guard. I mean, just the pick and rolls that they do are really fun to watch and are really effective. While it is still true that the Rudy Gobert trade was definitely an overpay, I think it's safe to say that it was worth it, with the Minnesota Timberwolves having one of the best seasons that they've ever had. In 2024, the Timberwolves have the best defensive rating, the 3rd best net rating, and although they only have the 17th best offensive rating, the 3-point percentage is the league's 3rd best. And actually, in the last 10 games, the Timberwolves have the 6th best offensive rating. However, the offensive rating might not be as important as everyone thinks. Everyone knows that a team's defense is arguably the most important thing in the playoffs. But the way each team runs their offense is completely different in the postseason than it is in the regular season. In the postseason, each team plays slower and takes all the time they can get to get the best look possible. And that's the exact climate that Anthony Edwards thrives in. Even though we've seen him carry this team to a win before, obviously he can't do that for each 7-game series that there is. But I'm not too worried because we have all very capable shooters around him, and as long as we let him run the offense late game, I think we can beat any team there is. Besides the offense getting too stagnant, the biggest other concern with the Timberwolves is that the Rudy trade might flame out just as it did back in Utah. However, this just won't happen, and let me tell y'all why. Back in Utah, Rudy had no capable perimeter defenders, and so all the teams took advantage of that, which ultimately led to all the times that the Utah Jazz flamed out of the playoffs. However, now in Minnesota, that is far from the case, with the Wolves having 3 of the best perimeter defenders in the league in Jaden McDaniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and Anthony Edwards. The Wolves are currently the 1 seed, however the OKC is right on their tails, only being half a game behind. And so, will the Timberwolves finish as the 1 seed? Will they win the Western Conference Finals? Will they make it to the finals? Could they even win the finals? Well, I don't know yet, but I'm sure that we will find out.